In a world lost to ignorance and confusion, three men arose from humble beginnings with a message of wisdom and hope for their troubled times. Three men who would eventually change the very face of humanity. But they fell off a cliff. So, here are some other guys.
It's Songtalk Radio with Bruce, Neel, and Phil.
Good evening, and welcome to Songtalk Radio with Bruce, Neel, and Phil for episode 185. We're broadcasting to you live on CJRU 1280 AM in Toronto and streaming to you live on the web at songtalk.ca/livestream. Songtalk Radio is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. Brand new songwriters or established professionals or anyone in between. And on the show, we share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become a little bit better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neel Modi, and joining me tonight are the Soda Pop members of the Songtalk Radio Action Team.
Okay. Hold on, did you say Soda Pop?
Soda Pop. We got Buzz Cola Bruce.
I'm buzzed.
Fanta Phil. Remember Fanta?
Yeah, it's orange, right? Orange.
I don't remember. I think it was purple.
No,
grape.
it was orange.
Okay, it was orange. And handling our social media onslaught tonight, we have Vanilla Coke Vanessa.
Oh, I like that because I love vanilla Coke.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I know I'm the only one.
And our newest team member, Raphael, is currently away on assignment.
Yes,
So
indeed.
thank you to Phil for doing double duty on the board tonight.
I know. Thank
I
you.
know. Yeah, with such enthusiasm.
Not easy.
There's a lot to work at.
And during the show, please join in the conversation. Send in your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio on Twitter, and we'll share them in real time. And please stop by our website, songtalk.ca, find out how you can be a guest on our show. And speaking of guests, Sintja Baba has been playing alongside various Toronto acts as a multi-instrumentalist and backup vocalist, currently playing that role in Marlon Chaplin's band. Marlon Chaplin was a guest on our show a while back.
Yeah, he was great.
Very talented young man.
Brilliant.
She started her own band, The Naive, where her music took the shape of various genres. Saw the Sun is a medley of catchy, upbeat hooks and mellow ballads. Welcome to Songtalk Radio, Sintja.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Glad you could join us. And you brought two cohorts with you today. We have Brandon on guitar and Belinda on backup vocals tonight. For the second song we're going to be doing tonight.
That's right.
Which is called Dirty Streets. And so we're going to be treated to a nice live performance.
They're actually band members, aren't they?
They're totally band members.
Yeah.
This is the Naive.
Do you want to
right
say
here.
their last names or anything?
Brandon Wall, Belinda Corpuz.
So the question I think a lot of people would like to know is there's lots of people who are songwriters and they're doing their own thing, but they want to get a band together. So how did you guys come together?
It was a long process. We actually all went to school together. We're different years.
Okay.
We went to U of T the jazz program.
Oh,
And
right.
I kind of had this silly idea of starting a samba band at one point. I was like, I'm really digging Brazilian music right now. I just wanted to do Brazilian stuff. So I approached the drummer, Stefan Hagrid, who's our current drummer right now, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. So he's like, I got a roommate, Brandon. He plays guitar, and I approached a bass player at our school, Jeff Deegan. And we kind of got together and started playing a bunch of jazz because that's what was happening at the time. And then after doing that for a while we were in school, I graduated and I said, I have all these songs that I wrote prior to even getting into the program and I really want to see them through. And years later, here we are. And we're about to play them now. So
how long have you guys been together then? Quite a few years.
God.
I guess it's
7?
Yeah. Wait.
Wow.
I would have, yeah.
You guys have passed the 7-year itch.
I would have said 2010, so I think that sounds right.
Okay, about 7 years.
7 years. Wow, that's a long time.
What's the key to keeping it together? A lot of bands break up after a short time, and members come and go. But you guys have kept the same core.
Especially when I'm in them.
Yeah, especially Bruce tries
6
joining.
to 12 months, dead.
6 to 12 minutes, Bruce.
Thanks, Neil.
We've been playing a lot more often in the past year, especially ever since releasing our debut EP, Saw the Sun, in January. So it was a bit slow at first. I mean, we're all very busy in different projects as well. And, approaching toward the EP release, we were like, all right, let's get it together. Let's play more often. And we've been playing at least once a month ever since.
You all have day jobs, I assume?
Yeah,
Support
yeah.
yourselves?
Absolutely.
In music or outside music, whatever.
Well, I have a job so I could support this career, right?
Ah,
So I have one career so I could have another.
Subsidize the arts.
What was getting? What's the real secret to holding it together that long?
to holding the band together that long. I think, I mean, a lot of the songs, musically speaking, are very old, and just seeing that through, just like going through the whole recording process, and adding fresh material every once in a while, keeping it exciting, you know. And also the other thing is, like I said, because we started playing a lot more often this year, is playing a new venue every time. So adding all these new experiences and connections and meeting other bands.
And there's nothing like playing live. I mean, it's like you can practice in a practice room forever, but it's like playing live is where you really come together as a band.
Absolutely.
I think one of the mistakes I made when I was in my first bands is we rehearsed 3 times a week for like almost a year before we played anywhere. And then you realize you play live, and it's like, rehearsing is nothing like playing live. You got to play live. It's
Man,
so
you have
important.
to rehearse 3 times a week? Like,
Yeah,
that's a luxury.
We were very dedicated.
That's cool. And that's another thing. These guys are extremely dedicated. I've never had any, like, you know, worries about anything happening so far. They're all very good.
No big fights at any point of conflict?
Oh, God, no.
Creative
no.
differences or anything? You rule the band basically yourself, then what you say
I
goes.
am the ruler queen, yes.
Yes, you're the
I'm
queen of the
Khaleesi
band.
of the
That's actually that is actually a good thing to have. Is actually a clear
Leader.
leader, because I mean it's a nice idea to have a band as a democracy. But very often that doesn't work, because if someone's, like you usually have 1 or 2 people who are really good and they're really, you know, they're working really hard and they're really serious about it, and then you have other people who are maybe a bit more relaxed, and it kind of, it's.
Why did you look at Brandon when you said relax?
He's a good guy.
You look relaxed. Well, you are relaxed.
Well, because you don't have a drummer.
Hey, watch it there, buddy.
I've had that exact same conversation with other musicians before, that, you know, democracy is harder to keep up.
It is
for
tough.
sure.
It takes longer, right? If
Yeah.
you try to talk everything out, it's better if there's a leader for some decisions. You just say, let's go with this now
Just do
and
this,
move
yeah.
on, right? And keep the rehearsals moving. I have a question. When did you start writing songs?
I started writing songs probably when I was 18, when I first started teaching myself guitar.
Okay.
And I started noodling around and coming up with little songs here and there until one of my friends heard them, which, funny enough, it was Marlon Chaplin. We go way back since high school. And he said, you know, these are good songs. Why don't we record them?
Really?
So from there, I got the idea of, like, yeah, why not? I should keep doing this.
And your first collaboration was with Marlon, or he was just encouraging you to keep writing?
We did used to write a lot of music together, actually. Yeah, but that's when I started writing songs on my own. And among some of them are these songs that you hear on the EP right now. It took years for them to get to where they are, in a lot of different transformations.
Okay, that's interesting, because
Yeah,
some
it
of our
is.
writers come on, Neil, right, and they say, I wrote this in an hour and it was perfect.
For like
I
20
loved it."
minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
You just pour it out of me, and that's
Definitely
it.
not
No.
those two songs.
Yeah. So they take development.
Yes.
Or so when you first write a song, are you ever just like happy with it the way it is, or do they always take on an evolution, or does it not occur to you till afterwards to maybe revisit it?
Right. That at first, when I write the demo by myself, I am generally happy. I have a structure, a whole thing, and then I bring it to the band, and that's where it goes through transformation, and then we play it live and we change it up. But yeah, these songs, though, it's not just transformation, they have history in terms of what they've gone through. So I can explain, when it comes to Saw the Sun, for instance, I used to play that with the band initially, and 2 horns. And they kind of did like the harmonies. And then I decided to bring it to 16-piece choir and arrange it. Belinda was in that choir, and arrange it for all those voices. There was like maybe 9 layers of harmonies, which I ended up overdubbing myself on the recording. So I took from those 2 horn parts and kind of layered the harmonies
So
based on
when you bring a
those.
song to the band, is there ever any changes that get made in terms of chord choices, or even lyrics or melody, or anything at the heart of the song, at the core of the song?
Definitely not lyrics or melody, but more so arrangement and vibe, I would say.
Okay.
Like having like
The
open
feel.
sections.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to ask about, of course, you guys were in the U of T's jazz program, which is, of course, very well known. Can you maybe talk about that? Because a lot of people that we deal with are, you know, they're self-taught and they work in their basement. But you guys are now actually fairly, you know, well schooled in jazz. Has that influenced the way you've been writing?
It helped me relay to other musicians what was in my head. I had a band prior to the program for a couple months, almost a year, and I found it very difficult to communicate to others what it is that I wanted.
You mean you couldn't write a chart, or you couldn't explain it?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, I'd never played with other musicians before either.
Were you studying jazz performance?
Yes.
At UT?
Yes.
And you were vocalist or
Yeah.
pianist or vocalist? primarily?
Vocalist.
Okay.
Both Belinda and I were vocalists. Brandon's obviously guitar.
Right.
But yeah, that year prior to being in the program was difficult to relate to others, so I had a lot of help from my friends who were in the band. But I felt like I couldn't truly take the reins that I wanted to take. So after going to the program, not only did it help me relate to other musicians what I wanted, but write it out, obviously, but also just hear things differently and just be able to arrange better and all.
It's a 4-year course, isn't it? Or
A 4-year course, and it helped develop my ears too when it came to arranging tunes and
Was it just jazz music, or were there subjects like English Lit or history, or was it pure music?
Those
Through and
courses
through.
were mandatory to take some arts and science and humanities
Mm-hmm.
courses, but I did that before getting into the program. So
You
once
did did an undergrad degree first, you mean? Or just a first year?
it was funny. I started out in philosophy.
Yeah.
I did not know what I was doing. I was like, I just got to go to university.
Well, that's a helpful skill for writing songs.
that's true.
That's true.
Philosophy is the study of Phil, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually the love of the knowledge of Phil.
It's the love of
People
knowledge.
don't realize that.
Philosophy is the study of knowledge, right?
And of Phil.
Well, yeah, that's a
there's
different course.
Then there's philandering, which we don't want to get into.
But anyway, so you took some of those courses, but mainly it was all day, every day was theory. And tell our listeners at home what sort of courses they could expect going to a university jazz degree program.
Yeah, totally. So there was a lot of performance-based courses, such as, for instance, improvisation class, where we all kind of like went into a round taking turns soloing or doing exercises. There was band. They placed us into ensembles together where it was essentially going to band practice. We could bring our own arrangements in, or our teacher would bring arrangements for us. And that was the class where we would go and actually play that material at the Rex on Monday nights. So it's kind of cool. Our teacher would be like hanging out in the crowd, having a beer.
And theory, of course. You studied theory?
Theory was an intense
Deep theory?
Well, and
Jazz
speaking of
theory.
theory, there's a lot of theory in the song that's coming up, I think. It's very
There
jazzy.
is.
Was that a segue?
That's a segue.
Oh, is it time for a song?
I think it is.
Let's have a listen.
Let's have a listen to Saw the Sun.
So now, can you say something to talk about this song? You were saying this is an older song,
Yes.
and it's gone through a few different variations.
Yeah, so this was the one I mentioned that it started out with just the band. It was a little bit more jazzy. There was 2 horn players on it. And then I brought it to the choir at U of T, and we did it there with a band and a 16-piece choir. And then after that, I recorded it for this debut EP, and now it's the titular single.
Oh, cool. Okay, well,
All right, let's have a listen.
let's give it a listen.
Tossing and turning under my sheets, corner street light by my window, feeling that awful need, the need to be somewhere doing a thing. All I want to do is lie here, bitter like the winter sky, bitter like the winter sky. My time, I got nowhere to run. Clouds stretch out in front of me. I'm holding out for the sun to come. Tops of the trees are telling me you ain't climbed high enough.
That was Saw the Sun by Sintja Baba, and we have Sintja here on Songtalk Radio on CJRU 1280 AM in Toronto. Wow, groovy song.
Groovy.
Really, really like it. I really like the way that, I mean, I don't listen to a lot of jazz, right? But there are very distinct sections to the song, right?
Yeah.
There's a verse setup, there's a really sweet pre-chorus where there's an interesting change, and then the chorus, of course, with the repetition of "I Saw the Sun" and the overlapping voices and everything. Very, very cool. So I like that it kind of leads you along the kind of progression of the song and takes you from section to section. I was interested why on the second verse you went to the chorus and then went to the "bitter like a winter sky" instead of keeping in the same order, which was kind of interesting. I'm not sure. I can't say whether or not I like it one way or the other because I haven't heard the other version.
Right,
but
right.
I just wonder where that decision came from.
It's one of those things that I realized after. It's not something that I set out to do it on purpose. I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, it's this way, and it's interesting that it's this way, and I think I like it.
You might want to
like
get to the chorus faster.
Well, I kind of like it actually because I think it actually sort of breaks up. You know, if you I saw the sun, and then it breaks up that sort of kind of rhythmic thing, and your solo, which is so free and sort of open, that I think if you went right into the solo from the "I Saw the Sun," I think they'd be too, like, you know, we're talking about contrast a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm
You'd
sure
be
like
too
in,
strong
you
in
know,
contrast?
Yeah, no, I think it actually works because there is a contrast from the bitter, like, you know, winter sky, because there's sort of that, there's like the stop, the da 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 da, you know, it kind of breaks, not the da 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 da.
Exactly, it breaks that repetitive groove, and
Yeah.
that's the pre-chorus to me is "bitter like the winter sky." I think
Yeah.
it sets up nicely.
And contrast is a really important part, I think, in songwriting in general, just the sections, to make sure that you have contrast in arrangements, contrast in voices, because that's how we hear things.
Well, as David Bowie said, changes. So it's the changes in a song that catch your ear, right? It's the changes, you change this, you change that, you add something, you take it away. This has got a lot of great changes. I have a question. What was your intention with this song? What sort of, did you have a thematic message? I'm talking lyrically now and musically. What did you want to get across? Because there's a great contrast between feeling really crappy, but you saw the sun. Was it about waking up or something to new reality? Or
Exactly, yeah.
coming out of some funk?
Yeah, you nailed it. At the time when I wrote all this music that's on the EP, I was still living with my parents. I was about 19 and just kind of feeling kind of stuck. And like I wanted to do my own thing, and I was writing all this music, and I had no way of getting it out there at that time because I didn't have a band. I wasn't performing live.
Right.
So it was definitely a different time when I was...
So when you saw the sun, was that an image for reaching out beyond your family situation? Like you saw some possibility of moving on?
The sun to me is coming into one's own potential.
Okay.
And at the time I felt like I was just beginning. And I remember the day I actually wrote this song. My parents lived in a building, and I had access to the rooftops, which was very high up. And I was just kind of hanging out there by myself. And I think I heard the loop in my head out of thin air and went and ran downstairs and started playing it on the keys and just like started looping it over and over again on the piano until I...
So the first thing you wrote was the chorus. Of
the first thing I wrote was the chorus,
I
actually.
saw the sun.
So
Did you
now
see the sun?
No.
You were on the roof.
He was on the
So
roof.
no,
It was just louder.
I actually do listen to a lot of jazz, and I like a lot of traditional jazz, especially like the stuff from the 40s. My big thing about the old jazz is because the old jazz was not played by 50-year-old white guys. It was played by a bunch of 22-year-olds who were trying to get people to sleep with them. They were playing because they were playing the rock and roll of the time.
Yeah.
And I have a recording of Glenn Miller live. And the drummer's not tapping his drum. He sounds like a rock drummer.
Yeah.
Like they're screaming and they're yelling, and I mean it's rock and roll at the time. You know, we sort of forget about that. And I found a lot of modern jazz kind of is almost too respectful for it. It's a little bit sort of too brainy, and this is not like that. This is not. I was listening to it and going, well, is this kind of jazz rock? And it's not. I'd say this is pretty pure jazz.
Okay.
In my mind, like it sort of reminds me a bit of Steely Dan. You know, that kind of stuff.
Oh man, I've gotten Steely Dan a lot recently at live shows.
Well, especially with that kind, with those rhythm figures, they do that kind of stuff very much. You know.
Yeah.
and a great band. Definitely, if anyone can listen to it, just fantastic songs, jazz stuff. But I mean, they get hooky, and your stuff is really, really hooky, which is, it's easy for jazzers to get into the technicality of the playing and the complexity, and then they forget that it needs to be a song that you want, that touches you.
See, when you say pure jazz, I think of all that stuff. I think of all the technicality of the playing and the 20-minute long solos and the stuff.
That's annoying jazz.
Well, but that to me is pure jazz. Like to me, this song has more structure than a pure jazz would have. Like, it's got a bit of that pop structure. It's got a bit of that rock and roll feel, almost, and it's got a bit of those. I mean, certainly the chord choices are jazz, and the melodies are actually kind of jazz, but structurally it's kind of more pop rock.
Could you actually maybe talk about the chords that you used for this?
Sure. And actually, before I do that, I just want to mention the player that's playing trumpet on this, Bradley Eaton.
Oh, yeah.
We also went to school with him. I think a lot of what adds the jazz element to this song is his playing.
Yeah.
And that was something that I added later on, like before we actually decided to record this for the EP. I was like, you know what? I think a trumpet player would really fill this out nicely, and he did a great job. I was super happy with it.
So when you're developing chord patterns, now you come from an educated jazz background, so what are you thinking when you come up with
honestly,
chord
I don't think.
Yeah?
Like, I don't really think in terms of, like, oh, I'm going to the fifth of this or that. Like, my brain just doesn't work that way. I work mostly on hearing things, just purely on ear. And when I came up with these chords, I had not gone to jazz school yet, so I honestly did not know what I was doing.
Well, that's good. Can you please just play the
we've got the piano here in the studio.
So let's see what octave I'm at here. So that's kind of the loop that repeats. I don't play this on piano right now, but this is what I played over and over again.
You wrote this on piano, not on guitar, right?
Yeah. Trying to fall asleep, tossing and turning under my sheets, gonna street light by my window. I saw the sun, saw the sun, saw the sun. So it goes back and forth between the, like,
it's kind of a bit of the sort of Brazilian kind of rhythm. When you play it like that, it's much more
yeah.
That's cool. I had an idea on structure, in case you want to totally rewrite the song with me.
Sure. Let's
what I was longing for after the solo was another lyric piece that was not either a fourth element, like a bridge type thing, or back to some lyric that would pull things together, because your first and second verse are kind of like, it's crappy, it's crappy, it's crappy, and then I saw the sun, it's crappy, it's crappy, it's crappy, I saw the sun. So when you come out of the solo, it might be nice to say, but something that moves the song, I'm big on story, so to wrap the story up a little bit, although you're still in that wondering place, one day I'll move on, like a bridge thing is looking at it from a different point of view. Someday when I look back at this, I'll probably say that things worked out just the way they were meant to be, or whatever, and then back into, and then leave the bitter like the sky, because we've talked about bitterness a lot in the song, so I don't think we need to bring it back at the very end there, just if we were rewriting it. At the very end, you bring it back as an ending, but I think you're bringing it back to the thing that isn't really what the song's about. The song is about the hope of moving on. That's just, this is all my opinion. Of course, it's very brilliant.
I would actually echo what Bruce is saying, because I did find the contrast between Bitter Like a Winter Sky versus I Saw the Sun to be like you're literally going from one side to the other, right?
Yes.
And when Bruce was suggesting a bridge type of thing, like after the solo in a different section, the opportunity there could be, like Bruce is saying, to go beyond what you see after you've seen the sun, or actually reflect back and say, what got you from the bitter point to I Saw the Sun? Like, what is there an emotional quality, some decision or something that inspired you, or something that you experienced that got you from?
See, it's a different approach, and what I focus on in this radio program is story, not so, and structure, not so much musical structure, although I love changes, but structure in terms of the development of the plot of the lyric. So if you're going to establish something in the first verse, you've said it, go on and say something different in the second verse. And then if you're going to come back out of the solo, say later in the song, for a bit of a wrap-up lyric, is is bring them forward. Now, if you're going to say, well, I didn't want to wrap it up because my life wasn't wrapped up, you can say that too.
That's
But
exactly how I feel.
But nothing's for sure. I don't know. I don't have a clue. But at least I saw the sun. I could lead in and say, at least I have that. And that would have hooked me more emotionally. You see, the song didn't grab me emotionally. It grabbed me by the ear. I was really intrigued. I was really into it. By the way, I found a reference to Basia. She is Polish. Singer-songwriter. Have a listen to her, folks, if
What
you're
was her
listening
big
at home.
song?
Well, she had a number of songs. So, jazz, she was jazz-influenced and Latin-flavored jazz-pop crossover songs. She was in a band called Matt Bianco. And her song, discography, just one second. Time and Tide was a huge hit. That was in 1987.
I remember that.
And I don't know. You can have a look. We'll have a look later and we'll post it on the website.
One thing I wanted to mention is I liked your lyrics. Of course, you can get the lyrics for both the songs tonight at songtalk.ca. They'll be in the show notes, and they're actually on the website now. It says intro, 4 bars, then 4 bars of done.
What's
That's
done?
that dun, 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 dun. The bell type tones in the beginning.
That's really cool.
And we just got a tweet in from our good friend Sharon Earhart, and she says, "Is jazz about thinking? Nah, it's about the groove."
Yay.
So
Thank you,
I
Sharon.
think it's a
Sharon.
state of
It's a
mind,
good
not
question, yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah,
I think it depends how you look at it.
There's 100 different definitions for jazz. Right?
that's true.
It's like any other.
But you know what we need a definition of, Bruce? What's coming up?
For those just joining us, good segue, Phil. Phil is the segue king. For those just joining us, you're listening to Song Talk Radio with Bruce, Neel, and Phil on CJRU 1280 AM in Toronto. Streamed on songtalk.ca. Tonight our guest is Sintja Baba, and she's joined by her band, Belinda and Brandon. Now there's a duet, Belinda and Brandon. That's
know,
Vegas,
right? It's
all right?
pretty.
Don't forget, we love to hear from you, so tweet in your thoughts to Song Talk Radio or email us at feedback@songtalk.ca. We'll share your thoughts in real time. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on Song Talk Radio on our resources page at songtalk.ca. Guess what? /resources. And the lyrics for tonight's show are on songtalk.ca right now.
Indeed.
So if you're just tuning in, go to our website and find the lyrics for our next tune, which is going to be Dirty Streets. You can follow along. You can even sing along if you want. Coming up on Song Talk Radio in the coming weeks, August 22nd, Girls Rock Camp graduate Bridget Fry. I think she's like 14 or something.
14 years old.
Yeah, first performance, started writing at 8. Yeah, she's a veteran. And then August 29th, we've got platinum-selling hit songwriter from Los Angeles, Shelley Piken.
That was a great show.
She wrote the song Bitch, which was a huge hit. And if you're in the Toronto area, please join us at our next Songwriters Meetup, Wednesday, August 16th, which is tomorrow. From 7 to 10 at the Transact Club. Phil will be taking the first hour. I'll be joining him for the next 2 hours. It's free to join on meetup.com, free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca/meetup for all the juicy details. Back to you, Neel.
Thank you very much, Bruce. So I'm thinking about what Sharon just said, right? And I was even asking you, like, what were you? And I think your response was to what I was asking you, like, what were you thinking with those chords? But you were saying earlier how when you went through the music program, you were better able to communicate your ideas to the band. So, like, when you come to the band, you come with a lead sheet that shows the chords, what are the musical structure, and the lyrics and everything.
Sometimes I do. I bring charts for the songs that are a little bit more complex, and if they're repetitive and simple, I don't. I just show it to them on the spot.
Right.
But in terms of thinking about the chord changes, to me, it's more about mood and just capturing an emotion and a feeling that I have at the time of writing a song. I'm not much of a story writer, and I've had, actually, funny enough, the same comment that you had about maybe like having some different lyrics at the end and not going back to the same thing. And I can see what you're saying, but to me, it's not about like emotionally attaching yourself to a story for this song. It's more of just a mood. And as a songwriter, personally, for me, it's more about hearing things rather than what I'm saying. I don't know if that makes sense.
Hearing things. You mean the vibe and the...
Yeah, just the vibe of the chord
feel.
changes and the feel.
See, the thing is, for me, though, I mean, you win twice if you have a great vibe and feel, and you lift it up with a sort of ABC, beginning, middle, and end. And that, of course, is your very linear type storytelling, right? I mean, you can circle around and come back. Anyway, have a listen to Basia, and I'll give you and listen to what she's doing with her songwriting. And our listeners at home as well, listen to that. I think it's called basiasongs.com.
Okay. Cool.
Just for reference.
I know a lot of people. I've known a lot of musicians who are self-taught and they don't want to have any kind of training because they feel it'll sort of take away the sort of rawness of their expression. I think it's not a bad thing to start off playing on your own because you learn how to kind of find your own voice. But by then, after you've kind of done your own thing for a while, getting some training, it helps you, as you say, communicate to other musicians, and it helps you get to where you want to go faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't change what you want. It just helps you, as opposed to, bashing away for like 3 weeks on trying to, why isn't this not working? You have enough sort of technique. You have a bit of a craft. And that's what we talk
options.
about.
Don't you just have more options?
You have more options, and then you sort of know, well, sometimes, going to a fifth here works really well. I'll try that.
Yeah.
As opposed to just blindly hitting chords in your guitar and hoping to find something.
Well, funny enough, I still do that on guitar.
It's not a bad way sometimes.
Like it actually helps you sort of hack your way through things, right? Because if you get stuck at a certain point, I'm like, I don't know what the next chord should be. If you go to your theory and then you try things, I'm notorious for being very theory steeped, right?
Okay,
I do a lot of theory, I do a lot of thinking, right? And lately I've been trying to embrace my intuition more, and I just hit a chord, and if it sounds good, I go with it, right?
Yeah.
But and that really is the key. I mean, you don't rely on the theory just because it's there. You have to play it, and if it sounds right to you, it's a tool just like any other, right?
Absolutely.
And if it sounds right to you, then you know you've hit on something great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
It's like if you're cooking and you don't know what cumin is, or you don't know what these spices are, you don't know that there's these options to put in the dish. Once you've learned all that and go, how does that go with that, and that's what chefs go to cooking school, right? Because they learn certain techniques, and actually a song is very much like a meal. And I guess I was just saying I wanted dessert.
The first time I tried to make dinner on my own when I was just living on my own,
Toast?
it actually came out gray. Gray, and it was so depressing because
Was there mushrooms
Was
in
it
it?
supposed to be gray?
No, it wasn't, and I still don't know why it was gray. But I was like really poor, and it was so depressing because it was like it was all the food I had, and it was gray, and it was awful, and I had to eat it.
Oh,
So
that's
sometimes
where you
learning
go.
stuff is a good thing.
But mac and cheese is always bright
You
orange.
put everything into a blender, it'll probably
It's
end up gray.
always helpful.
All right, should we hear another song?
I think
Let's
we
hear
should.
something live.
Okay, so this is going to be live. This is called Dirty Streets.
This is called Dirty Streets, and it's also off the debut EP, Sell the Sun. I've taken lonely walks around this town at sunset or at dawn. I'd like to say I've seen much more than where I've been so far alone. Staying at home won't do me any good. Got the urge to be outside, places that I haven't dared to think I would ever see. Dirty streets to pyramids are far from what I know now. Dirty streets to pyramids are far from what I know now. Nothing to say, nothing to do the next day. Going so many places, but nowhere they would wanna be. Going so many places, but nowhere they would wanna be. Go outside this little world, then you'll hopefully see. No, no, no.
too many useless things. Dirty streets to pyramids are far from what I know now. Dirty streets to pyramids are far from what I know now. At sunset or at dawn, so far along. At sunset or at dawn, da 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 da.
Wow. That was Dirty Streets, written by Sintja Baba and performed by Sintja, Belinda, and Brandon. Oh, now that was trippy.
I really like the guitar thing at the end. That little delicate sort of thing in the background. That was really, really neat.
Really tasty.
It's a very subtle thing.
Said in your chart here there was a guitar solo. Was there? Like, that we
So-
skip that? Or?
Yes, this version is a lot different.
Yes, I noticed. Then the words.
Yeah,
Some of the is slightly different. No, that's fine. That's fine. I just was following along there.
absolutely.
It's really great in terms of what we're talking about, contrast, change. You know, it's all about the changes, they might say, you know.
Yeah.
So you shifted gears, you know, in terms of intensity, in terms of number of instruments playing, number of voices. I mean, the arrangement is great. But also the whole treatment of moving through. It's like the thing ends on a breakdown, but then it's over, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't break down and then pick up like a pop song would and then hammer home to the finish line.
And I thought it was really, really, really great how you used, the keyboard. You actually went between sounds, and then you had like a cello sound,
Yeah.
and that kind of gave the song a real dimension. And I think sometimes keyboard players have, especially people who are songwriters on the keyboard, they have tendency to play the piano. And they play the piano, and that's just it. Where you're kind of using your key, all the features of your keyboard, which
There's
is really
a reason
wise.
why I did that, actually.
Okay.
Because
You couldn't
of
afford the
original-
cellist.
Well,
No.
There's always that.
So yeah, originally in the recording of this song, Andrew Downing, which was one of our teachers, plays cello.
Oh.
He does pads, he does lines, and I actually lifted some of his lines and interpreted them into this arrangement of it.
Cool.
It's a lot longer in band form when we perform it than it is with this trio, but I thought, I think a bit shorter would work. And then I was just kind of messing around with the whole cello effect, and I decided to change up the chorus too. Why not?
It
felt
worked
good.
really well, I thought.
What's it about?
That's what
So
I was wondering.
when I started singing it, how the song actually started was Marlon and I were recording some of my very first demos years back, and we were just kind of blowing off some steam sitting around, and he started playing, let me play it, this over and over again on the piano. And I started singing lyrics mindlessly at the time, and it was Dirty Streets to Pyramids, and I kind of took that away and added more to it, wrote the rest of the lyrics. And with this song, I pictured a real journey of like, I feel like I haven't seen much right now being stuck in that same situation. I really I want to know it all. I want to know what it's like to feel great and be, for instance, like the richest person to the poorest person, and see like the grimiest parts of the world
Dirty
to like
Streets to Pyramids. Okay,
exactly
all
to
right.
like the most beautiful parts of the world. I just kind of want to see it
So
all.
this is after you saw The Sun. It's a sequel. Right? Because you saw The Sun, and then you knew there was something more in your life, and now you're out there exploring it. or you're longing to explore it, right?
At the time I was, yeah.
Longing. I love songs of longing. Why, just, I'm curious about why you went to breakdown at the end and then just went out from there. It's just a feel thing?
Realize more and more that I don't like happy endings, apparently.
Oh, no, I don't mean happy. I mean,
the fade off.
That you went from go outside this little world you'll hopefully see. I've got too many useless things, and I want to know more, and I want to see the sunset and the dawn, and then ta ta ra ta 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 ta. So you went to what is it called? Non-verbal.
Non-verbal, non-word.
Yeah.
So you went to no words. In other words, you went to a jazz form, which might be called scat.
Right,
But
right.
you went to scat and then it's over.
Yeah.
So was that like a coda? Do you think of that like a coda, or just do you think in those ways?
At the time, I didn't think about it much, but what it represents to me right now is kind of what the song is saying in one of the choruses as well, being stuck in those repetitive daily routine patterns and not really being able to see outside of that.
Oh, so you're back at running in circles at the end.
Exactly.
Wow. Can you read a happy ending song?
I really like the way the ending, actually. I thought it was a really interesting way of dealing with it.
It was.
Because, you could sort of just repeat the chorus, because the chorus is pretty hooky, and then, do your coda at the end, or, do something like that. And it was kind of an interesting way of just bring some randomness and the sort of guitar lines at the end, which I thought were really interesting. Because I really liked it. I thought it really worked well.
Thank you.
And it's... I mean, it's good as a songwriter to push yourself to try different forms and different approaches.
It wasn't so much a criticism as more for our listeners at home, because on this show we have a lot of people writing pop. They're either writing folk pop or rock pop or pop, whatever.
Pop,
which is my favorite.
Pop-tart.
And basically they're writing a song, not to formula, but more closely written to form, meaning that you're going to have an ending to the song. It's going to be 3 minutes and 30 seconds approximately. It's going to get on the radio and make a lot of money. A lot of our artists are like that, and they come in and they play these crafted songs. And what's interesting there for our listeners, hello listeners,
Hi.
is to know that this comes from jazz, a jazz writer, where those pop forms are not so important. In fact, it seems like they're not even in your mind. Pop format and trying to write a pop song. So your intention was not to write a hit pop song, right?
The really interesting thing about the ending
she's
is...
shaking her head no.
No. The really interesting thing about the ending that just occurred to me, the ta-ta-ra-ra-ta-ta, in a pop format, like you're saying, Bruce, that would often, usually those kind of nonverbal hooks. We had a show a couple weeks ago on a bunch of songs that we selected that have those kind of nonverbal hooks. They're not real words, but they're usually very happy moments in the song because they're melodically rich, they're hooky. Often they are the hooks of the song, right? And so, I mean, just to look at the lyric sheet, it might be that there's kind of a breakdown at the end, but then the drummer starts playing with a little bit more groove, and there's this brightness at the end, right? Which would actually contrast the kind of longingness of the rest of the song, because the song does have a very much a longing type feel. It doesn't.
Yeah, and there's no
feel very
resolution like
resolved.
your other song. This feeling isn't resolved.
No, and that's what I mean.
understand.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Doesn't have
that's
to be,
that's
no.
just a decision to make the song not resolved,
Yeah.
right? But I
Do you do that in terms of your chords as well? Like at the end, are you staying in a chord? How you say in English? Help me here.
A dominant?
A chord dominant or whatever. That are you staying in an unresolved chord pattern? That's my question. I can't tell from listening. What chords? Tell the listeners at home what chords you're ending on. Then just play the ta-ra-ra-ra there.
They're actually the verse chords.
Oh,
So it's the same.
So it's unresolved, though, really, isn't it? And spooky.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
the whole
key are you
song
in
is
there?
like
Do you know? Or
F minor.
it's so there's F minor. So you're in a minor. You're in a minor group,
tonight.
right? Any weird things like going from an F to an F minor? We had a whole show about C to C minor, F to F minor.
That happens once with the F sharp. Sorry, F. It's an F minor, but there's a moment on the F sharp
Go ahead.
chord that goes from minor to major and then back to the same.
Nice.
That's I love that.
Oh, that's a groovy thing.
is that a common thing in jazz?
I don't really think about. I don't know. Is it? I feel
Well, I
like it's
think
more
it is.
common in
Yeah,
pop
like
music.
when you think about all the old, the American songbook.
Yeah.
They have lots of that stuff. Hey Misbehave and all those songs.
Okay.
They do a lot of that sort of major to minor thing. It's
What's your reference material, Sintja? What do you reference in terms of jazz?
you
Like at
listen to?
school, what did you listen to?
At school,
Did they play the
inspires you?
standards for you? Like
I love.
Dizzy Gillespie or big bands or...
I really like Brazilian music.
Oh, right.
I really like anything that Tom Habim, João Gilberto Gil, who's more recent, have done. Gal Costa was one of my favorite singers. So a lot of Brazilian music, I feel like it just grounds me. It's in my system.
Yeah, well, you've got that feel.
No, you're not Brazilian.
I'm actually Albanian.
Albanian, okay.
Yeah, but I
That's
don't know,
similar.
it's hot there too.
Just a couple of
A is for Albania, B is for Brazil.
Albania is Balkan, so we hear a lot
Balkan?
of music in odd times.
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
A lot of
would it be
vodka.
like gypsy type rhythms and stuff? in
It's very
Albania?
similar to like if you hear like folk Greek music,
Yeah.
it's the same.
Yeah, lots of interesting rhythms and changing, shifting rhythms. And
Yes,
yeah, you can dance to it.
Now, because some of the Balkans, I know they actually have really interesting singing patterns where they actually do like really, really close harmonies.
I
It's
love that.
Yeah, and it's so cool. It's just, it's unlike anything that you hear in pop music, and I'm surprised no one's actually brought that into pop music because it's so cool and different.
Oh, as
And just
Belinda, I make them do like sometimes like a tone or a semitone
Do-
apart,
really?
just
Yeah,
rubbing
yeah.
together.
Yeah,
I
it's
normally
so
have
neat.
two backup singers. It's actually Belinda and Ella Gladstone, and sometimes I have Jocelyn Barth and Jackson Welcher.
Oh, cool.
So I rotate between singers, and yeah, there's always two singers at a time doing harmonies.
I'd like to
live.
have backup singers with me all day.
all day as
It's
you
the
know,
best.
as you're working.
Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
great? Just do your hum and they're going, ooh, wah, wah.
But they have to do the dance moves though.
Oh, that would
like
be
'cause
fine.
that's without the dance moves.
It would
it's
make
like,
my life very happy. Like we had that, what was that song we had last time? And the Color Girls sing, do,
Walking the Wild Side by
So
Lou Reed.
when you're doing
Reed.
when you're working with backup singers because you're rotating them, are you prescribing the parts? Then you're writing the parts and singing
Oh
parts
yeah,
to
they
them and
come to
telling
my
them.
house. We sit down.
I mean, like this is what your backup part is.
I'll have sent them previous demos of like the harmonies isolated or just the harmonies together.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll write the parts.
So you don't
for
get different
them.
backup singers doing something different.
No, it's always
No,
the same.
always the same.
Yeah, the
You're in
parts are
control.
written. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that's also. I mean, your music is very orchestrated.
It is.
Without being, because I like most music, but one of the forms of music that I never really kind of warmed up to is prog rock, because to me prog rock is like what all the like bad jazz and prog rock are very similar to me. It's like they're all brain stuff,
Brainy.
and it's like I love groove and
No
I love
heart.
soul and,
Soul.
and sort of I love hip hop, that kind of stuff. And this stuff is orchestrated, but it's not overly orchestrated. It's still very
Loose.
very loose, and I guess I think maybe that's sort of maybe the Brazilian, because I mean certainly those rhythms are very complex. If you ever hear like a Brazilian band playing, I mean there's lots of stuff happening in there,
Yeah.
and it's and when they're messy, boy, it's not fun. But when they're tight, it's amazing because they're all like these little bits of an engine kind of going together. And I think that's what comes through in some of the music is that you have the complexity of jazz, but it's not. You still got rhythm, you still got the soul to it. Which I think is
You're
hard
actually
to-
very flexible because Marlon Chaplin, you play with Marlon, and he's a rock and roll guy.
Oh yeah.
through and through.
Yeah.
Totally.
The one thing we were talking about before we went on air was guitar and piano. So I just want to touch on that for a moment. Is when you're playing piano and you're playing chords on a piano and the guitar is playing the same chords, there's this kind of muddiness that starts to happen. What you did is you were playing some very basic block chords,
Yes.
and then Brandon was playing very tasty little. I'm talking about in the second verse, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You came in. So that's one way to solve that problem. Just for your kids at home, don't have the guitar player play the same chord progression as the piano, because it's just like they cancel each other out somehow. It's like it's almost too much.
Well, it's in the same frequency range, and of course with the piano. I mean, one thing I noticed when I was playing in a jazz trio for a while, and was an amazing keyboard player, but he was used to it was actually a jazz duo, so he was playing a lot because he was used to filling up all the sonic space. But he had another instrument, it didn't work, and I said, look, I got to play bass because there's no room
You don't need
for the
guitar.
guitar. You don't need the guitar, and it's
Yeah.
and I mean that's the type of thing you learn in your program is you learn about orchestration, and a big part about orchestration is having something play when something else isn't playing. And that's a tough thing to learn, actually.
And originally in this recording, Brandon is actually doing the block chords and
Oh,
all
wow.
those patterns that I was
okay.
playing. So because I wanted to play this song on keys today, I said, hey, Brandon, why don't you actually fill in the spaces and do some of those
Right on.
Oh,
She's
cool.
telling me to improvise, so she's still like she's also wanting improvisation.
Yeah.
Oh, so your stuff was kind of was a bit loose.
A
Wow.
lot of the
nice.
time, Brandon actually improvises
Yeah.
in the band. Yeah.
That's the jazz way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
That's
great because
the
it doesn't
freedom.
sound like it. You know, it sounded like I thought it was actually all pretty heavily orchestrated. So
No,
Which is what you
just the keyboard and the vocals, but the guitar is all free.
Yeah, like the song
Nice.
structure is there, but
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you just fill in
One thing
gaps
to,
and
to
things.
reference for the folks at home listening is reference big band when there's a keyboard player and there's also a rhythm guitarist, a rhythm/lead guitarist, because they basically, the guitarists in jazz will go chunk chunk chunk. Well, Brandon knows this. They go chunk 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 chunk, and just hitting the chords right and getting this nice feel. But then they're going they get their solo right, and I guess that's what I was waiting for the real, like do your cello with a lead guitar. That would be cool.
yeah, I have to admit I was kind of looking forward to a bit of guitar solo.
Next
So-
time, Brad.
Yeah,
Will you
yeah.
come
And
back
then-
What
again?
happened though toward the ending when I was
little bit.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
a little
wanted
bit.
him to let loose, but
I want to hear the diddly 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 diddly.
Tapping. Yeah.
anyway, Cynthia, we'd like you to. I'm going to speak on behalf of all the boys here. We'd like you to come back with some songs you wrote, new songs, maybe in
Absolutely.
6 months, whatever, and
Happy?
be in touch. And I'd like
have some
something
happy
happy
endings.
with an ending.
Yes.
No.
But apart from that, how do people get more of your music?
Okay, so I have my music up on SoundCloud and on Bandcamp, and for both of them, you're right, The Naive Music. So, for instance, for SoundCloud, it would be www.soundcloud.com/The Naive Music, and for Bandcamp,
The Naive. That's NAIVE.
that's right.
Music.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Very
and we
cool.
also have a Facebook page. Again, The Naive Music.
Where is it for sale? Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't send them to SoundCloud then. It's free.
Okay,
Bandcamp.
SoundCloud, you can listen, but you can't download unless you allow them to download.
Exactly.
And SoundCloud
Oh,
will
I
not
see.
be around for that much.
Yeah, that's
longer,
true.
apparently.
That's getting a little bit kind of concerning
A little
about.
bit. Yeah.
Are you performing anywhere in the near future here in the big city of Toronto?
You just read my mind. I was going to mention that we have a gig coming up at the Painted Lady on Ossington and Dundas, and that's going to be on August 29th.
Ah.
And that's actually going to be a CD release for another band that's playing that night, Cat and the Queen.
Oh,
That's
So-
a Thursday.
I think so.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think so.
August
No, it's a
29th.
Tuesday.
No.
Isn't it Tuesday?
It's Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
All
Because
right,
we have
it's
a show
Tuesday,
that night.
just like today. So a few weeks from today.
It's a Tuesday night.
Painted
tonight,
Lady.
yeah.
And maybe we can head over after. What time are you on?
Oh, I think we're on around 10.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to actually announce today, which is pretty exciting for me, we are going to be releasing our first music video
Wow.
in September. So this week, I actually shot the music video for Saw the Sun. And
cool.
it was filmed and directed by Carly McCloskey, so I'm pretty excited.
So
about
then, did
that.
you have to actually kind of storyboard it, that type of thing? Was it?
We did storyboard it, and just like the song has juxtaposing parts, so does the actual music video, where some
Light
scenes
and
are
dark?
shot. It's some scenes are shot in the beach and some in the city,
Yeah.
just to get that like open airiness, but
just
also
the
the
contrast.
rigid parts.
Yeah.
To it.
Hard
Cool.
to find the sun these days in Toronto, but if you're lucky on
We
certain
caught
days.
it. We caught the
All
sunrise.
right.
There you go. That's what counts.
Yeah.
I think I think I hear the band.
Is the band coming in?
I think
The
so.
show's winding up
And
now.
that is about all the time we have tonight on Song Talk Radio with Bruce, Neel, and Phil. Big thank you to our guest, Sintja Baba. Excellent stuff.
Yay! Thank you.
The crowd goes
Thanks for having
wild.
And the band.
And the band,
Yay!
Belinda and Brandon. Excellent stuff, guys. And we were discussing where you can hear more of Cynthia's stuff on the Naive Music on all your favorite social media channels. Please send us your impressions via Twitter at Songtalk Radio, via email at feedback@songtalk.ca, Facebook and YouTube at Songtalk Radio, and stop by the site songtalk.ca. It's a lot of song talks. And subscribe
Never
to our podcast on iTunes at songtalk.ca/iTunes, and don't forget to sign up for a free newsletter on the website. You can also find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show at our resources page, songtalk.ca/resources, or just click on resources. And if you're in the Toronto area, please join us for our next Songwriters Meetup. That's tomorrow, Wednesday, August the 16th, from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Transact Club. It's free to join on Meetup and free to attend the round table. It's kind of like this, but a lot more people, 12 people share their
And beer.
songs.
And beer. And beer.
And it's a great way to connect and network and find collaborators,
All sorts of stuff.
All sorts of great stuff.
It's fun, too.
Stop by songtalk.ca/meetup for all the details. We'd like to thank CJRU 1280 AM in Toronto for
Thank
putting up with
you.
all our shenanigans. The station's technical officer, Michael Newton, get better, buddy.
Yes.
And program director, Alyssa Matthews. We'd like to thank Vanessa Vreeland for
Thank you, Vanessa.
deftly handling our social media channels once again. And thanks to Phil for taking on double duty on the tech board tonight.
Thank you, Phil.
And most of all, we'd like to thank you, the home listener, even if you're not at home. If you're on Twitter, you can follow Phil at
the Phil Emery.
follow Bruce.
Bruce Harrod,
can
2
follow-
R's and 2 T's.
And you can follow Vanessa at
Sunny_Vanessa.
Sunny_Vanessa. You can follow myself, Neel, at neelmodi_.com. And Sintja, you're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter, Sintja Baba.
Sintja Baba. You want to spell that for our listeners?
SINTJABABA.
And please stop by the website, songtalk.ca, browse past shows. This is episode 185, so there's a lot of material.
Yes, indeed.
And find out how you can be a guest on the show. That's all, folks. Tune in next week. Same song time, same song channel.
Good night, everyone.
Keep on writing.
Bye.